Hey everybody, welcome back to my Voron 0.2 build from this LDO kit. We are on day 6 of the build, day 7 of the series. There was an intro episode that we didn't actually build anything. That was the first episode. So if you're just catching up or you want to see how we got to the point where we are so far, I will put a link to the playlist up in a card in the corner there so that you can go back and get caught up with where we are. Since the last time you saw this, there have been a couple days that passed. I didn't do any work on it, but I did print a new part here. These little cam lock pieces here, I originally had printed them in white, and after looking at them in context here on the build, the way it's shaping up, I decided I liked them in the dark red better. So I reprinted just those two pieces in the dark red instead of the white, and I've replaced them in those two spots there. Other than that, we have left off just where we were at the last video, and we're going to get started today with the Z-axis assembly and then also the feet that go on the bottom of the unit, which I guess is good because once the Z motor's down there, it wouldn't sit flat anymore without the feet in place. So everything that we should need for those items is here on the desk. These printed parts here are mostly for the feet. There's one little holder here for the Z motor. And then we've got some rubber feet. We've got some stuff here for the anti-backlash nut that goes on the lead screw. We've got, of course, some hardware that we need. I think M3 by 6, 8, and 10s. And then some self-tapping M2 by 10s as well. And then these long M3 by 40s, I believe. And we have a couple of pieces of hardware over here for a filament sensor that's going to go in the rear foot. I guess this foot piece here has a nice little filament sensor built into it. And that, by the way, is one of the new changes in the official Voron V0.2 R1 release, which is the one that came out in the fall of 2023, I believe. And just as a programming note as well, the manual that I've been showing up here in the corner, I think up to this point I was looking at an older version of the manual because that version did not have the steps for this filament runout sensor here that we're going to build today. So I've now switched over to the correct PDF. There weren't any other differences up until this point. So all the pages that we've looked at so far are identical to the latest manual. But the links that I've had down in the description may have been to an older version of the manual. So as of this video today, and I'll try to go back to the old ones, and if those links were wrong, I'll update them to the latest manual as well. So if you're following along and you're using those links to download resources and whatever, you may have had an older version of the manual because I was looking at the wrong one, but that has now been rectified. All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with the instructions. And again, I have the LDO build notes for their kit up on my screen as well, and so I'll be pointing out any differences between the official manual and changes that we have to make based on those LDO notes as we go along. So the first one is here. Our anti-backlash nut that we get is a little bit different than what they provided, or than what comes standard with a Voron kit or with the Voron bill of materials. And so this is a little bit different, but it should be fairly straightforward in any case. And we'll go ahead and feed these down in here and try to reach in here with my new T-handle driver here. We printed this handle. If you're just getting caught up, I printed this handle for the standard hex nut drivers that came with the LDO kit last time, before the last build session, and this is a whole lot better. It's easier to use for sure. So these are a little bit tricky to get threaded in here. I'm going to actually get that one started before sliding it in place, and then the other one we're going to have to actually feed down in there and line it up correctly, but that should be a little bit easier to do once we have that one there holding everything in place. Alright, so we're going to tighten those down enough to snug that in place, but not, we're going to tighten them down fully later on after we get the lead screw fed through. Then the LDO instructions tell us we can skip this because we don't need these screws since our Kirigami bed has a different sort of holder here, we don't need those screws in the back there to hold that in place. And now we're back to preloading more of these M3 nuts. And so I do have a bunch of the printed parts here to hold the nuts, and we will go through and I will try to orient this in the same way that they're showing in the instructions so that I don't get confused, and just go through and load all of these nuts in place. All right, so that should be all of the M3 nuts loaded in place, and I've run out of my pre-counted out supply as well, which is probably good. And then our little astronaut friend is reminding us that on the next few pages we need to check these M3 nuts before we close everything up, and we won't be able to get to them to fix them again. So let's double check everything here. Again, trying to orient this as in the instructions. So there should be 3 up here, and there are. Should be, it says 3 over here, but I've got 4 somehow. So we'll look into that in just a minute. We've got 3 over here. On the other side, they want 3 here, 3 there, and 3 up there. On the back, they want 2 in there, 3 and 4. Oh, I miscounted, or I mislabeled something. And then they want 1 here, but this is the one that we've skipped earlier on in the instructions. The LDO guide told us to skip that one because we didn't need it. And then they want 4 of them on the inside of here. And these were our special, hard to get this on camera. These 4 here were our special double ones that are for our door latches. So I'm gonna go back before I button this up. I'm gonna figure out why it says that there should be 4 over here. And there's also an LDO note here as well. On that page 99, which says that they recommend using the LDO detachable spool holder instead of the standard Voron one, which I have printed, that special LDO version, and it says that it uses 1 fewer screw, so we only need 3 over here instead of 4. But in any case, I have none, and so I'm going to go back through the instructions real quick and figure out what I'm missing. And I'll catch up with you after I've got that resolved. All right, I got it resolved. I had the whole thing turned 90 degrees in one of those pictures we were looking at earlier, so I put some of those nuts in the incorrect extrusions. But I figured it out. I've got 1 extra now because, as per the LDO instructions on that, on page 99 here, we took 1 of those out of the right-hand extrusion there, so we've only got 3 there. So this is our extra. I'm going to set it off to the side, and I'm sure that we'll use it at some point in the future because I doubt that we're done preloading M3 nuts. Okay, so here we go with our feet parts. And so this one is the one that will also hold the power switch, I believe. And I've already, again, put the heat set inserts in ahead of time. And so all that should be left to do here is to use the, which ones are they? M3x10s, which are these, and screw these rubber feet onto the bottoms of these parts. I'm going ahead and doing this one as well, even though it's not on this page. I believe that it's probably on the next page, and we were going to need to do it eventually. So let's turn the page and find out. Yes. So this is the special one for the filament runout sensor, and the filament will go into this hole, I believe, on the outside of the foot and then feed up into the printer from there. Yes, and so we will use these extra parts here to complete that filament runout sensor. And again, the LDO kit came with this switch already pre-wired and also labeled. It says filament sensor here on this label, so that we'll be able to remember what that wire was for. All right, so first of all, on our Bowden coupler, they want us to remove this little rubber gasket that's on the back side of it. We don't need that piece. Yeah, that seems correct. And then they want us to just press fit this into here. Hopefully it fits. Yes, it seems like it will. It's going to need a bit of force. So I may need to go and get like my vise to finish pressing it into place. We're going to leave it like this for now, and I will later on off camera do that because I don't have that equipment here in my studio with me. But we'll go ahead and kind of test out how the sensor is going to work. So what they want us to do is drop this bearing in this little slot right here. And I assume it rolls against the filament path and pushes up into our switch, right? Yes. So this switch is going to go, I've dropped the bearing, awesome. Let's put that back in. The switch is going to go in that orientation so that the switch is right above, the little switch that you press is right above the bearing. And we will screw it in place with a single one of these M2 by 10s. And this is just self-tapping into the plastic, so we should be careful here. Right, so then I think the idea is, if I can find a piece of filament, yeah, here's one. I think the idea is if we have the filament coming through here, it will, I'm listening for it to click that switch. It works. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I'll try to hold it up to the microphone. So yeah, that's definitely engaging that switch when the filament comes through. And then it's not wanting to come all the way through the path because we don't have this pressed all the way in place and it's not quite lined up right. So I can see it in there, but also this piece of curved filament that I have is not wanting to go in a kind of straight way. But yes, I believe that the filament sensor is now working. It's just a matter of press fitting this coupler fully into place. And so I'm going to go do that off camera again, and we'll be back. And then I will, because I don't want to wait and do this later because I feel like I need to do it now because I think we're about to put this onto the frame and it will be hard to press this in place later on. So I'm going to go do that, and then I'll be back and we will continue on. All right, we're back. I've got this nicely seated in here, so that looks good. And actually, let's test again with our piece of filament. If I slide that through there, I hear the switch engaging, which is good. And if this was a little straighter, this is a super old piece of filament, so if I try to straighten it out, it's brittle, it's likely to just snap, but we'll try it here. There we go. Yeah, that path looks good. Yeah, all right, cool. So that should be our filament sensor done and ready to go. And what's next is to put these onto the frame. We're going to use these very long M3 by 40s. And I guess the trick here is just making sure we get the right one in the right spot. So I'm going to orient this frame in a similar way to how they have it in the picture. And this big one here goes on this back corner right here. This is going to have additionally two, probably these two, of our preloaded nuts that need to line up with these two holes here. So I'm going to go ahead and move them over into place. Do my best to get those lined up so that we don't have trouble when we go to try to screw this down. So I'm not going to tighten that down all the way just yet. I'm going to grab our other two M3 by 10s that we still have in our pile here and try to make sure that these are lined up and at least get them started before I tighten down that other, this corner piece here. Now we can tighten this down the rest of the way. And then this other back corner is the other special corner that has the filament sensor in it. These parts, by the way, also have these little sort of outdents that line up with the top of the channels in the extrusions. So that helps to line them up and get them straight. All right, that's looking good. And then for our front ones, we just need to make sure that they are oriented the right way. So this kind of little curved piece here goes toward the front of the machine, which would be that way. So this one should go here. This one should go here, right? I believe that is correct. All right, there we are. And then to finish out the feet, we have these little dark red decorative pieces. And they just go on like so, right? Nice. And there's a little hole in this piece. These two here on the corner and the back here are going to be for the two screws we put in. This one's actually a hole that allows access down to that bolt that's below it that we just used to tighten the foot down. So you don't necessarily have to take these little decorative bits off in the future if you want to remove the feet. These little guys, again, are self-tapping screws, so screwing directly into the plastic, I'm making sure that I'm extra careful to not over-tighten them and to not strip the head and to get them to go in as straight as possible. Right. So those pieces there are purely decorative, right? The rubber feet actually protrude beyond there, so the printer's not going to be sitting on those at all. In fact, let's just flip this over real quick and I can double check to make sure that it's sitting nice and flat and solid. This little thing fell out. We'll put it back in. Yeah, that's actually really good. Yeah, so those little decorative bits down here on the corners are, you know, just to add a little bit of color, I guess. And they look nice. Excellent. This seems really solid. It's not like I can't tap down on any of the corners and get it to rock at all. So we've got it nice and level, I believe. Let's see what's next. All right, our Z drive. And so I'm just going to lay this on its side for the moment. And we're going to take a look at what we need here. So here's our Z motor with the lead screw already attached. And it says here that the direction that the motor wires come out does not matter. I'm just looking ahead. I'm trying to figure out if this goes up this way. I don't think I want, yeah, actually I do think I want the motor wires to be coming out one of these back corner directions, right? Because this is going to sit at a 45-degree angle to the extrusion here. So maybe something like that. And I believe that this is going to face in that way. Is that correct? I think so. All right, so we are going to go with this orientation for this guy. And our little, this is our M3x6. It's the only one of that size that we had for this part of the build. It goes here on this back corner. And then two M3x8s go in the other two openings over here. I'm going to tighten these down nice and tight because we don't want the motor wobbling around. All right, so they want our printer upside down. I'm going to move this Z in-stop wire just out of the way for the moment just to get it over that way. I'm going to drop this filament runout sensor wire over that way also just to get it out of the way, and our other motor wires to try to make as much space as possible. And then they want us to put this down this way. Yes. So yeah, I actually got this backwards where I wanted the opening of this to be. So I'm going to take a moment and unscrew this and turn it 90 degrees, or 180 I guess, to get it in the orientation that I wanted. Again, probably doesn't matter because there's plenty of room below the printer to run wires. But I think I would prefer this to be on this side of this back extrusion, just so that it will be easier to run it directly up into where the electronics compartment is going to be. I could be wrong with that choice, given that I've never built one of these before, but just from looking ahead at the instructions and kind of, I think I understand how this is arranged as far as where the different electronics are going to go. I think that this will be a little bit better for running wires. So I guess I'll do it this way, and we'll see, you know, in a few days when we get to that part of the build, whether I was right. And by that time, it will be too late to change the orientation of this thing, at least not very easily, so I won't. I'll just live with however this turns out to line up. All right, so now I want to drop this down this way. My wire's coming out over on this side. I'm going to feed this through here. And while feeding this through here, I need to install the anti-backlash nut, which I believe was, for the LDO kit here, is part of the instructions for the Kirigami bed that we looked at earlier when we built that bed. But basically what they want us to do, let's see if I can get this on camera. Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to show you where this lead screw is coming through here. Maybe I can do something like this. So where this comes out, the top of our nut here, we want this spring on here, and we want to put some tension on this piece. And we want to press it all the way down. It actually meets in with, so I'm going to back this screw out a bit, and it actually meets up with, there's these two little rectangular, can the camera focus? There's these two little rectangular protrusions here from this lock piece on the nut. And what we want to do is we want to press those down into the pieces that they mesh with, which are down here inside of that piece we already screwed in place. And we want this to be as tightly pressed down as possible and locked in like that. And then we want to screw this lead screw up through there. Like so. That was exceptionally hard to get on camera, and so I apologize if you didn't see it. But in the end, what we end up with is this spring putting tension down from the top there on our lead screw. And everything looks good there. Let's see what they want us to do in the Voron instructions. They want us to flip back this way and put two M3x8s in this lower bracket here, which we're going to have to find our two preloaded nuts and get them lined up. I'm going to tilt the whole thing toward me so I can see it better. I gotta say, it's a pretty constant challenge for me to try to build this, but also have it oriented in a way that the camera is seeing things correctly. So I will continue trying my best, but sometimes I have to tilt things in such a way that I'm able then to see what I'm doing, you know? All right, we have not found the preloaded nut on this side. I must have not gotten the alignment just right. Come on, where are you at? All right, we're not tightening these down yet, as per the instructions, because we're gonna probably want to shift this whole thing side to side a little as we get it positioned so that the lead screw is perfectly vertical, right? So there are two more of these. I was just looking ahead in the instructions there to see that I understood what the next steps are going to be, I need to reach down into here and tighten in 2 of these. And again, I've got preloaded nuts to line up first. So wish me luck. That should be close. Let's see. All right, those are good. I was just sitting here wondering, why isn't the bed falling? Because every time but it's on the lead screw now, that's why. All right. Every time until now, when I've set the printer up this way, the bed, falls because of gravity. Let's put this piece back in. They should probably just wait and tell you to put these 2 little lock nut pieces in later on, because they're always going to be falling out here. All right, once we've got that, now it says take your time here, right? So we're supposed to loosen these 2 screws on our backlash nut, which we have done, and move the bed assembly all the way to the lowest position. Okay, there it went. I heard the Z end stop trigger. All right, so we're making sure that everything's in line vertically. We want to make sure that the motor is positioned so that this is centered from left to right. And then I can tighten those 4 screws on the motor mount. All right, so I don't know if this is something that I just want to eyeball, or if I want to be more precise than that. All right, that looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and lock these down on the bottom here. And then these 2 in here, which you can actually access from below this bottom panel as well as above. All right, so that is tightened down. And then it says I can retighten these 2 here. All right, now I assume we're gonna do some testing. Yeah, so it wants us to just manually cycle the bed up and down to make sure that we're not binding and we've got good motion everywhere. So I will do that here. Just turn the lead screw, I guess. All right, there we are all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom. That seems really good. The motion is smooth, feels good. I did not mention it earlier, but when I was just working with the lead screw, it reminded me there is a note in the LDO build notes for this kit to remind you not to put any lubricant on the lead screw, because this particular lead screw is Teflon coated, and so it's nice and smooth without the need for any extra lubricant. So that might have been a step that we just skipped in the manual. I didn't even notice if it told us to do that or not, but yeah, this motion is real good. All right, I'm happy with that. And our astronaut friend appears to be happy too. He's getting some milk. So I believe that brings us to the end of the build for today. Tomorrow we will continue on and we'll build the x-axis. And maybe put the belts and things in place as well for the motion of the x-axis. We'll see how far we get. But that's where we are so far for the build as of today. The majority of what we did is visible only from the underside. So here you go. Legs, feet. It's sitting nice and level, which is great. We've got our Z drive motor there in place, and everything looks like it's moving nicely for our Z-axis for the bed to move up and down. So everything's good. All right, and that'll do it for this one. I will see you in the next one. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, if I've done something wrong and you'd like to correct me, feel free to do so in the comments down below, and I will catch you next time. Have a good one.